Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we talk with martial arts practitioners about their histories and the influence that their practice of martial arts has on their lives. You are listening to the free version of this podcast, which is abbreviated. Help support this program by considering to subscribe to us on Patreon, where you will get 4 full-length podcasts each month, 1 week before the YouTube release date. The cost is that of about 1 coffee shop coffee per month. Go to www.patreon.com/malmag to subscribe. That is www.patreon.com/malmag. If you would like to purchase single full-length episodes of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, visit our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com, and that is malmag.gumroad.com. This week I talk with Brandon Ryan, a martial artist I've known for quite a while, about his amazing adaptive martial arts program. Sit back and enjoy. Okay, welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. Today I've got a very exciting guest. He's someone I've known for a little while, and he's out of Omaha, Nebraska area, and he's been involved in martial arts since he was a little boy, because I remember one of the pictures he sent me was him as a very little tyke with Larry Hartzell. It was a very interesting picture, and he does some interesting work in Omaha working with people with disabilities. And I don't want to talk too much about him. I'd rather have him talk about himself. So Brandon, welcome to the show. This is Brandon Ryan.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a big honor to be talking with you.
All right. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on. I've known you for, I don't know how many years now. And you're a person who I'm always excited to see what you're doing because you're always doing just, some really interesting stuff. Your whole thing is called adaptive martial arts, and you're doing a lot of adaptive stuff. And it's always great to see your creativity and the things you're doing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you're currently up to, and then we'll kind of go backwards a little bit.
What I'm currently up to now, we just got done teaching another adaptive self-defense clinic here in Omaha. And we basically had a woman that she has a weird disorder where her bones come out of shape or socket if she moves a certain direction. So
oh, wow.
Mainly in her hips. And so trying to adapt various grappling styles to fit her body that doesn't require so much strength and manipulation, but more just going with the attacker's energy that they give her and reacting off that. And so really what that looks like is just a lot of like small joint manipulation, training that into chokes and Greco-Roman wrestling maneuvers.
Wow, that's great. So do you normally do more one-on-one since each case is very different, or do you do group stuff as well?
I have taught all over Omaha. I have taught in every major college here in Omaha, wow. Teaching able-bodied people. I do more one-on-one private things with people that have various disabilities. I've worked with people that are visually impaired, amputee, deaf, autoimmune disorders, anything that of the mainstream disabilities that you can think of, I've worked with for a certain amount of time. So that's something I tend to take a lot of pride in myself. I don't know many other martial arts instructors that have done that. So
that's true. I can't think of any either. I know there's some folks that I've met out here at UCLA that are doing some interesting things, but the diversity of what you're doing is definitely, from what I've seen, extremely unique. And it's a challenge. I mean, I we look at any student on a personal basis because everyone learns differently as a challenge because you do have to tailor make things, to individuals, in any situation. But you're dealing with people who have added needs of tailoring. And I mean, it, from what, especially with this last example you told me, the lady you just worked with, you're talking about some very wide range of things, from mobility issues to it almost sounds like you're even saying like emotional issues.
Yeah, like I've worked with people that have like different mental health disorders, like anxiety disorders, and like autoimmune disorders where their body is literally fighting against them, where they already lack so much energy, and so how do you apply what they're already facing with and give them tools that they can use against an attacker or a potential violent encounter?
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
that's really it's really awesome.
yeah, and in terms with dealing with people with anxiety, which is something that I live with too, learning to find that peace in the midst of the chaos of what you're dealing with, and finding that inner strength and confidence in yourself to come out of that situation is really powerful as well.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, if you kind of got anxiety to begin with, we're talking about, especially if we're talking about self-defense, if they're coming to you for something like that, there's enough anxiety in the idea of thinking that you're going to be attacked anyway. So it's a highly stressful thing, even in its practice.
Yeah, and it's also learning to take that already frantic feeling of panic and transforming it into power. It's hard to do, but from my experience, it can be done. It just takes a lot of time and trial and error.
Absolutely. I think you see that. Um, it is kind of interesting, I think, because, I think we're sometimes as martial art instructors, we're expected to have this immediate magic pill, right? You can come and do a class or something, and suddenly you're now bulletproof to whatever attacker comes up to you. But, even
Yeah,
if you say elite soldiers, let's take, cream of the crop, something like Navy SEALs, Marine Recon, Rangers, Airborne
right.
Missile, even their training courses aren't one, it's weeks, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think if I'm being honest, that's the sad thing about martial arts these days and all systems of training and thought is that you take these courses and then all of a sudden you become bulletproof to whatever violence comes your way, which is not something that I promote to my students. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I
Mhm.
tell them that you're probably going to get punched a lot.
Yeah,
You're going to get bruises and you might even bleed, but it's a fight. It's your mental mentality that gets you through that encounter.
right.
You know what I mean? It's not. I I know so many people, even in the jujitsu world, that are like, "Oh, my jujitsu can handle anything at all times." Like, no, it can't, because you're not indestructible.
Indeed. Well, give us a rundown of before we kind of go back to your history. Give us a little rundown of what martial arts you're doing currently.
Currently, in terms of adapting my own personal Jeet Kune Do, I do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. That's my main uh, training facet right now, along with a lot of Greco-Roman wrestling and judo.
And there's a very specific reason for that, and it's your own disability, right? So you need to be more tactile.
Yeah, I need to be one that, and even Larry Hartzel would have agreed with this. I need to be able to get inside of that danger to find safety.
Right.
And those are his own words too. So
Absolutely.
I think that I'm doing what he would want.
I fully agree with that. That is one thing I think, having known the man for the time that I did, which was a short time on the calendar, but a lot of hours, and spending a lot of hours with him personally. And I honestly, yes, I believe he would be extremely proud of what you're doing, very much so. And yeah, yeah, I'm 100% sure. And I was just kind of thinking about this yesterday, how much I kind of miss him and training with him and the way we did train.
Yeah, I miss him. I miss him more now than ever. I was having some whiskey the other night with my dad, and we were just reminiscing. And something I told him is that the one major regret that I have in my life that I've yet to get over is not spending more time training with Larry.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, in my young life, I decided to go train with another instructor whom I won't mention. But it's just the kicker of it is that if I would have stayed training with Sifu Larry, and if he was still alive, I would have been a full instructor under him, and he could have seen me accomplish it and been there. But it's just one thing I'm trying to make peace with and let go. But that is always kind of just ate me up.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. I think, for what it's worth, you making peace with that is by doing what you're doing, which is paying it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Taking all that stuff and doing the types of things that you're doing, which, I mean, if you think about it, and it's I think it might be hard as a teacher to kind of understand as you're dealing with sort of one person at a time or groups of people,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't notice because it's an over time thing. Like, think about what Larry, how you're thinking about it now, and he passed in 2007, and here we are 15 years later, right? And that's when you're going to hear from these people that you're teaching now, and you'll start to understand how many lives you've affected very positively, and you're going to start hearing that because you're doing this amazing work, and these are going to start kind of, trickling back to you like that. That's where I think that piece is with that, because I think you've got a lot of important things and you're paying it forward.
Yeah, and that's really helpful too. I know another special moment was when I was talking with his late wife, Deborah, and she basically told me over an email one day that they both considered me to be their godson.
Oh, that's sweet.
And at the moment that she told me that, I was really kind of just experiencing some jadedness within like the JKD culture. Everybody like bickering over what's what, and I just decided to just train in what I thought was most effective. And then when she wrote me those words, it was like this fire just reignited in my heart, and I started trying to figure out better ways I could fuse what I learned from Sifu and while blending what I thought was appropriate too. It was very powerful.
Well, and that online JKD world, which, I've found my feet in many times, and I think some of it is just where my position is, and people dragging me in saying, hey, look, this person this and this person that. And I try to keep out of it. And even though, he's probably seen me in it, go, you're not keeping out of it. You're pretty. And it's like, well, yes, it's when you attack people that are my teachers, and you're saying things that are blatantly incorrect. Yes. I don't let an audience of 2 people, let alone 2,000 or 20,000 or 2 million, which none of these, I know some of these clowns think they have that kind of audience, and they don't. But I don't even want 2 people to see that type of thing unchecked. Yep. And a lot of it just boils down to, look, do not believe things from people who are not qualified to make a statement.
Right. Absolutely.
And an example is just, I've seen people from thousands of miles away talk about, oh, this is what's done at the Inosanto Academy, by people who've never been there.
Right.
And I don't think, and again, I'm not wanting to toot my horn, and I really don't know how to say this without it sounding like that, but I've been there 18 years solidly and fairly involved. I kind of know who's coming in and out those doors. And when you're a person who I've never seen before, running your mouth about how things are going, especially right now, I'm like, you don't have the qualification to say that. That's like me telling you what's going on in, I don't know, the northern part of Norway right now. So even if I had a camera on one fixed spot and I could watch what was going on in that one fixed spot, that doesn't really give me a feel of what's going on there.
It's not the same thing.
Exactly. So, and that was, it's one of those hard things because, we talk about Larry. So I was there at the end, and one of the things that he asked me was he asked me three things, and one of the things was to stay out of the politics. And so
Wow.
I, as far as like saying who's better, who's right, that I do stay clear of. I just defend things that I think are blatantly
Yeah.
wrong, you know.
I feel like him telling you to stay out of the politics is him being like a prophet of sorts, as
Yeah,
what's to come, years down the road. Like, hey, just to warn you, stay out of this sector.
right. Well, I think that existed before the internet, uh, and he did find himself in it, or in the middle of it, and said it's not worth it,
Yeah,
and out of it. And I think that is probably true. I mean, it's like what do they call those clickbait headlines? It's sort of the
yep,
same thing.
yep,
People want to come up and say something that's inflammatory, and they think going to draw them students. And you know what? It probably does, but it's, like some of those guys that there's what's that one fella I see every once in a while? He's like from Russia, and he's doing that weird thing, like hand thing. In the early videos, you see him by himself. He looks like a weird dance, and all of a sudden now he's got students, and it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, it just shows if you do stuff that's weird and controversial or whatever, you'll get
yeah,
students. Is that really what you want? Maybe it is. If you
yeah,
if you don't have much to offer, maybe you're going to do whatever to draw in students. And you know what? In the end, I'm going to say those people are looking for that, and you're
yeah,
filling needs. So
mhm,
it's okay in some ways, but
yeah,
in
yeah,
other ways, like, it's probably, I don't know. I always say if your main selling point is that I'm not this thing, or this thing is wrong, or all these people do this thing wrong, and that's your main selling point, that's your main approach, it's going to be short lived. Let's put it
yep,
that way.
yep,
It's my thought. So, but anyway, enough about that. Let's get back to you. Let's get back.
yeah.
Let's get back to how you got started and all this stuff.
Yeah, so I actually, when I was a little boy, I'd come home from school, and my dad had a garage studio where he had 5 or 6 students, some of which were in the Air Force, some were just close friends that wanted to come learn. At the time, my dad was teaching Ed Parker style Kempo karate, which to me looked just as Jeet Kune Do-ish as anything else these days, because it had a lot of quick trapping movements into
Mm-hmm.
the clinch in judo. And my dad started implementing arnis into the picture. So this was like pre-UFC, before UFC one even happened.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was already blending all these styles together, and I thought it was just amazing. And my dad would lay out this yellow exercise mat, and I'd get down on the mat on my knees and try and mimic what he was teaching. So that's how I got started. And then uh, I think the week after UFC one, we went down to, I think, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for a Larry Hartzell seminar.
Wow, that brings back me. That's where I used to go for all my concerts. I grew up in the Quad Cities, Illinois, Iowa. So Cedar Rapids is where we would go.
Yeah.
Omaha is actually where I'd go at Thanksgiving a lot of times. I had my grandmother's brother and
Wow.
sister there. So I've been a long time since I've been there, but
Yeah.
holidays there.
But I remember, being in my wheelchair as a kid and watching Sifu Larry just implement boxing into grappling. I was so stunned.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest highlight of that first Hartzell seminar was when my dad scooped me up out of my chair during a break in the seminar, and Sifu Hartzell was showing me a triangle choke, the same thing that Hoist Gracie used in several of his UFC fights.
Wow.
And everything just kind of culminated for me at that moment, because I was like, man, if I can use my legs as a small person to choke someone, I'll be pretty okay. Like,
Yeah.
but um, watching Sifu Hartzell just throw people around and put them in joint locks and submissions was really cool to me. And I knew that that's what I wanted to be good at. So that was the start of my journey into the martial arts. And then I got into judo for a while, and my judo professor's name was Sensei Sensei Lee or Dr. Lee, and he was probably way ahead of his time too, because he had adaptations for every single throw that ever existed.
Wow.
And he in Sifu Hartzell gave me this sense of molding my mind to adapt to various needs. So that's really was my start in martial arts, was the Kempo karate, adding in the Jeet Kune Do philosophy and trapping, and then shoot and catch, and then judo as well.
Wow. And just want to give a shout out to your dad. Your dad is Robert Ryan,
Yes.
who operated a school there, at least a training group, 2 schools, okay, for quite a while. And he was law enforcement there, right?
Yep. 21 years in the military, about 10 years serving as in the VA Police Department of Veteran Affairs.
Yeah. Very cool. And I didn't know he was a Kempo guy before, so that's a really interesting factoid that I didn't know.
Yep. It's funny. I still watch him some days, like not knowing that he's doing it, but doing like Kempo style striking and trapping, which again, like in that style of Kempo, the Paksao entry is used so much to get into everything else.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I try and tell my students all the time that no, not one style is unique. Everybody kind of borrows off of everybody and does things in similar ways of the same technique or skill set.
Right. And it's interesting, especially that you're using that trapping as an example of that. That's one of those hot internet topics as we look at, because and the 2 things you basically get from it: people telling you trapping doesn't work, and then of course the opposite, that people are going to fight that. And then you've also got this idea that trapping is only Wing Chun. That's the only art that has it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, rewind, folks.
Yeah, you're right.
What are your thoughts on those things?
Well, from experience, and this is where my own jadedness in the Jeet Kune Do world started, was when I had a couple of people online. I don't even remember their names, so that won't really matter. But they said right. They said they said that if I wasn't teaching trapping in the exact form that Larry or Guru Dan taught it, that I wasn't teaching Jeet Kune Do.
And this probably again coming from people who didn't train with either one.
Probably so. But just because I wasn't teaching this Paksao, Wapsao, Tansao concept to destroy punches, led to people saying that I wasn't being authentic to what I was being taught, or even using the JKD moniker. And so, I think if professional boxers like Floyd Mayweather can use trapping in boxing, which he has, there's some validity to it. Is it going to look like?
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast. Please click the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notification bell. Also consider subscribing to the full-length podcast at www.patreon.com/malmag, or purchasing individual full-length episodes at malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Brandon Ryan. Coming up next week, we have martial artist, educator, and stand-up comedian Brian Stoops. Check out the Malmag store at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the store tab. There, you will find a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Kirby Kerbong, as well as Timmy B's and Dos Manos t-shirts. Many more products coming soon. Also click on our courses tab to purchase online courses, right now featuring a course in the Dos Manos stick of FMA. More courses to come. This show is produced by Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine. Visit us at www.martialartslifestylemagazine.com and enjoy the free version of our online magazine with articles, a recommended schools page, and a worldwide events calendar. Music by Jack Al Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.